In the morning, I got up. Ciao, 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 ciao. In the morning, I got up to the rice that he feels I have to go. The boss is standing with his cane. Ciao, 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 ciao. Boss is standing with his cane, and we work our backs curve. Oh my God, what a torment. Ciao, 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 ciao. Oh my God, what a torment we go through every morning.
So Bella Ciao Italo is an original script prepared for Coffee Munch performance. I am the first narrator. You can call me A. My partner says A stands for Angrez.
और मैं हूँ दूसरा कहाकार जिसे आप डी कह सकते हैं, यानी देसी, शुद्ध देसी, खराब. Actually with A, B makes more sense than B. So I may be called B, यानी bilingual और बहुभाषी. आज की प्रस्तुति है बेला चाओ इटैलो. इटालो कार्विनो की कुछ लघु कथाओं पर हम केंद्रित हैं. बेला चाओ इटालो कुछ बातें इटालो साहब के जीवन की करेंगे, कुछ उनकी लघु कहानियां देखेंगे. So hello friends, welcome to the show. Bella Ciao Italo. Bella Ciao you may have heard if you saw Money Heist. It emerged as a hymn of resistance, starting with the partisans who fought the Fascists and the Nazis in Italy during World War II. You may be wondering, what does Bella Ciao have to do with Italo Calvino? Well, Signor Calvino was a leading figure of the Italian resistance. That is the correct. So why the theme of resistance? As the stories will show you, the way the system deals with you, the only path open is resistance. The system with a capital S declares you incompetent, be it as a pseudo-secular or an urban or rural maxim, or bans it all. Sometimes at some places drinking, some things being eaten, some books being read, and if all else fails, upturns the value system or morality itself by, say, modifying the constitution. And what may you do? Resort to Bella Ciao, of course. Let's begin with the hymn.
Una mattina sono sognato. Ciao, 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 ciao. Una mattina mi sono segnato e ho trovato invaso. Partigiano, portami via. Ciao, 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 ciao. Partigiano, portami via e mi sento di morire. Sei felice sui montagna. Ciao, 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 ciao. E sei felice là sui montagna. Vedi luna, un bel fiore. E questo fiore, partigiano. Ciao, 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 e questo fiore del partigiano morto per la libertà.
Italo came from a family of scientists, yet he chose literature as his pursuit and profession. I'm sure the family atmosphere must have made him feel useless and incompetent, good for nothing. Let's start with a short story, as biographies may get less interesting for some of you. Hence the first short story, good for nothing.
Okay. So the first short story from Italo's collection, Numbers in the Dark, contains short stories composed between 1943 and 1984, compiled by his widow Escher after his death. So in these short stories, Italo is diabolically inventive, comical, satirical, philosophical, cosmological, mythological. Oof, that's some mouthful stuff. The name of the book, Numbers in the Dark, probably refers to a search of meaning in a chaotic world, the limitations of human understanding and the allure of the unknown. Let's begin. Cominciamo. Chalo chalu karte hain. Good for nothing.
So already high, the sun shone obliquely into the street, lit it confusedly, projecting shadows from the roofs onto the walls of the houses opposite, kindling fancy shop windows in dazzling gleams, popping out from unsuspected cracks to strike the faces of the people bustling past each other on a crowded pavement. I first saw the man with a grey beard at the crossroad. Standing or walking, I can't recall. He was getting nearer and nearer to me. That's for sure.
So either I was walking towards him or vice versa. He was rotten, had a thick grey beard. Familiar? With a thick grey beard. And he wore a kurta. His eyes were large, cold, liquid with a strange flicker at its corners. It was hard to tell how old he was. So he had a book in his hand, closed, but with a finger to keep his place. Immediately, I had an impression that his eyes were upon me. A set of motionless eyes checked me out from up to bottom. Didn't even spare my back nor my insides. You know, I looked away at once. But with every few steps I took, I felt an urge to dart a glance at him. You know, each time I would find him nearer and nearer to me, looking at me. And now he was standing right in front of me with an almost lipless mouth, creasing into a smile. Then the man pulled out his finger from his pocket and humbly pointed downwards to my feet. He spoke with a thin, rather humble voice.
Hey, I beg your pardon, but your shoelaces are undone.
It was true. The trodden and bedraggled, the two ends of my lace dangled at the sides of my shoes. I blushed a little and said, "Thank you. Thank you so much, sir." Stopping in the street to tie up my shoe is quite annoying, you know, especially when you're in the middle of the pavement and people are just knocking down for fuel here and there. And plus, there was no place to put my foot on, kneeling down on the ground with people knocking against me. So the man with a beard, he muttered a very cold and vague goodbye and left at once. But it was destiny that I should meet him again. Not a quarter of an hour had passed, and I found him standing in front of me, looking in a shop window. As soon as I saw him, I was seized by an inexplicable urge to turn round and retreat. Oh my God, my brain was saying, "Piche mud!" And I was like, better still just as quickly as I could pass. While he was intent on the window, in the hope that he would notice I I was just expecting that, but no. As fate had it, it was already too late. The stranger had turned and seen me and was looking at me and had a sense of something else that he wanted to tell me. I stopped in front of him, but now a little afraid. The stranger had an even humbler tone.
Ah, look, it's untied again.
My anxiety kicked in there and I still wanted to vanish into thin air without answering. I bent down again to tie my lace. Now with angry diligence, my ears were singing and I somehow felt the people passing me and knocking me around were the same people. But they noticed me for the first time. And they were muttering ironic remarks now. But the shoe was tied very tightly and well now. And I was walking with a light short step and an unconscious pride. I was even hoping to run into that stranger again to, recover my reputation as it were before. Yet no sooner I had turned around the square and to find myself just a few yards away from him. On the same pavement, then quite suddenly, the pride that was urging within me was replaced by dismay. For as he looked at me, the stranger had an expression of regret on his face. And he came towards me, gently shaking his head. As one pained by some natural facts beyond human control. So as I stepped forward, I squinted with apprehension at the guilty shoe. But it was as tightly tied as before. Yet to my dismay, the stranger went on shaking his head for a while and then said,
Now the other one is undone.
"Quit taking I felt the way that you do in nightmares as you want to scrub out the whole thing and wake up. I forced a grimace of rebellion, biting my lip as to, holding back a curse, and then started yanking frantically at my laces again, crouched down in the middle of the street. I stood up with my cheek flushed beneath my eyes. As I walked off, head down, wanting nothing better to than escape the gaze of the crowd. But the day's torture wasn't over as yet. As I toiled home hurrying, I could feel the loops of the bow slipping slowly, one over another, not getting looser and looser. The lace very gradually coming undone. At first I slowed down as though to find a little care that could, give or sustain the tangle's uncertain equilibrium. But I was still far from home. And the tips of those laces were going from one end to the another of the pavement, flopping this way and that. Then my walking became a little breathless. I was feeling as though I was from a wild terror. The terror that I would yet again come upon the man's inexorable gaze. It was a small, compact town where one went endlessly up and down the same few streets, 3 or 4 times in half an hour. Now I was marching across it as though in a nightmare, torn between the shame of being seen with my shoelaces yet again untied, the shame of being seen bending down to tie it. The ice seems to thicken and throng around me like branches in a wood. I dove in the first doorway I found to hide. But at the back of the porch, in a half-lit hands resting on the side, who do you think it meant? There stood the man with the grey beard as though he was just waiting for me. At first, I gave to
Right? They are both undone now.
If nothing else, the doorway was a quieter place to do up my shoelace. And there was a step to rest my foot on too. More comfortable. Though standing behind and above me, I had the man with the grey beard watching, missing not one move of my fingers. And I sensed his gaze amongst them, muddling them up. But after all I had been through, it didn't bother me anymore now. I was even whistling as I tied those damned knots for the nth time, but tying them better now, being relaxed. उलझन सुलझे ना, रास्ता रूझे ना, जाऊं कहाँ मैं, जाऊं कहाँ. उलझन सुलझे ना, रास्ता सूझे ना, जाऊं कहाँ मैं, जाऊं कहाँ. All would have been well had the man kept quiet. Had he not started first to clear his throat, uncertainly, then to say it all in a rush with decision.
I beg your pardon, but you still haven't learned how to tie your shoelaces.
I turned at him, red in the face, still crouching down. I ran a tongue from between my lips. আমি গিজ বাঁধতে বুঝতে পারি না. You know, I am hopeless at tying knots. You wouldn't believe it. As a child, I never wanted to make the effort to learn. I took off my shoe and without untying my laces, I used a boot jack for crying out loud. I am hopeless at knots. I get muddled. You wouldn't believe it. The stranger said something odd. You know the last thing that you would expect for him to say?
So, how will you ever teach your children, if you have any, to tie their shoelaces?
But the strangest part of that was, I thought this over for a moment and then answered, as if I'd already considered this question to be asked me someday and somehow.
ये बंद करो ये नाटक वाटक. यही तो आपको बंद कर दूंगा. सेंसर से पास कराया. लगता है कुछ अर्बन नक्सल हो. भागो यहाँ से. क्या है ये नाटक? मुझे समझाओ ना.
Sir, ये Bella Ciao Italo है. This is Bella Ciao Italo is the name, sir.
चाउमीन मतलब चाइनीज है. इटालियन मतलब सोनिया गांधी ने भेजा है. दोनों मुझे राष्ट्र विरोधी लगते हैं, एंटी नेशनल. ये कागज क्या तुम्हारे हाथ में? यही टूलकिट है क्या?
भाव आप कॉफी पियो ना.
क्या फटाफट बंद करो पूरे यहाँ से.
आप कॉफी पियो ना. मैं आपके चाय पानी का इंतजाम करता हूँ ना. You know, 100 works even to call and to dispose.
अभी थोड़ी देर रोक कर फिर से चालू करते हैं. कहानी अभी बाकी है दोस्तों. थोड़ा इंतजार रहेगा अंत के लिए. बस ये पांडु मामा के जाते ही हम कहानी खत्म करेंगे.
Great. We'll take a 5-minute break here, 5 to 10-minute break here, and then we'll resume. Where we are doing 2 other short stories from the same Numbers in the Dark. So, Italo Calvino is one of the most charming and influential Italian authors and writers of the 20th century. You know, he had over 513 books on Goodreads. Over the years, he rejected fascism, communism, and conventional genres in the literary and intellectual journey. We sometimes just believe this thus. I would like to refer here to at least 2 things that I have believed in along my path and which I continue to believe. One is a passion for a global culture. The rejection of incommunicability, of narrow specialization. To keep alive an image of culture as a unitary whole, in which every aspect of knowing and doing is a part. Another is a passion for political struggle, culture and literature towards the formation of a new ruling class. I've always worked with that in mind, to see a new ruling class take shape to contribute to leaving an imprint. Calvino lived from 1923 to 1985. Most of his adult life, he was a member of the Italian Communist Party. Yet he left when the Soviets invaded Hungary. Italo was born in Cuba. His unusual first name was given by his mother to remind him of his Italian heritage. But since then, he ended up growing in Italy. Calvino thought his name sounded belligerently nationalist. Italo reacted strongly against the violence of regimentation of Benito Mussolini and his fascists. He fought them as a member of the Garibaldi brigades and yet tolerated them, making do somehow. Time for story number 2. From Numbers in the Dark, making do. So there was a town where everything was forbidden. Now, since the only thing that wasn't forbidden was the game of tit-cat, the town's subjects used to assemble on the meadows behind the town and spend the day there playing tit-cat. Now, some of you might be wondering, what in the world is tit-cat? What is tit-cat now? What is tit-cat? So, you might popularly know tit-cat is a game of gilli-danda. And as the laws of forbidding things that had been introduced at a time, and always with a good reason, no one found that there was a good cause for complaint and had any trouble getting used to them. So, there is a very famous song but concocted with the lyrics. खाने खिलाने पिलाने की दुनिया, ये लिखने लिखाने पढ़ाने की दुनिया, कुछ भी करके कराने मैं क्यों रखूं मैं भी, सब कुछ कर दो निषेध निषेध, हटा दो हटा दो हटा दो ये दुनिया, मेरे सामने से हटा दो ये दुनिया, तुम्हारी हो फिर भी त्याग दो ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है, ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है. You know, years passed. One day the constable saw that there was no longer a reason why everything should be forbidden. From there, and sorry. So years have passed. One day the constable saw that there was no longer any reason why everything should be forbidden. And they sent messengers to inform their subjects that they could do whatever they wanted. The messengers went to those places where the subjects vote to assemble.
सुनो सुनो, अब कुछ भी निषेध नहीं है, सब कुछ अनुमति है.
The people went on playing tit-cat.
अरे समझे, आप जो चाहे कर सकते हो.
अरे चंगा, असी तो गिल्ली डंडा खेलेंगे. Good, good, good. We are playing tit-cat. The messenger busily reminded them of the many wonderful and useful occupations they had once engaged in and could now engage in once again. But the subjects wouldn't listen and just went on playing stroke after stroke without even stopping for a breather. Seeing that their efforts were in vain, the messengers went to tell the constables.
आसान, बहुत आसान, अति आसान. आपातकाल की घोषणा कर दो, गिल्ली डंडा ही बंद करा दो, गिल्ली डंडे को ही अवैध घोषित कर दो. अरे तुम फिर से चालू हो गए? जेएनयू से हो गया? अर्बन नक्सली लगते हो। बंद करो, ये आखिरी चेतावनी है।
You know what to do now. वन जीरो जीरो 5 बार डायल कर दिया।
अब पांचों उंगलियां घी में।
लगता है सो गया। Here, we'll visit some of the Calvino's quotes from his book, Why Read the Classics? So let's start with something good. He said, classics are those books about which we usually hear people say that I'm rereading, not that I'm reading. Probably due to its inherent hypocrisy about not having read a well-known book or a sample to this one. A classic is a book, when we read for the first time, gives a sense of reading something that we have already read before. Or a classic is a book that we've never exhausted what we have to say, that has never exhausted what it has to say to its readers. And finally, a classic is a work that relegates the noise of the present to the background hum, which at the same time, the classic cannot exist without. And yet, the classic is a work that persists as a background noise even when the present is totally incompatible with it and holds sway. For example, 1984 to present. In 1956, the Soviet Union invaded Hungary. Italo was traumatized at his ideals being shaken up. He declared himself the black sheep and left the Communist Party he had dedicated his life to. Let's now move to story number 3. Now, that's one of my favorites. Also from the Numbers in the Dark. It's called Black Sheep. B, tell us the story, please.
एक देश था जहां सभी चोर थे। हर रात सभी अपने घर से मास्टर कुंजी और छायादार लालटेन लेकर निकलते और किसी पड़ोसी का घर ढूंढ लेते। लदे हुए सुबह लौटते तो पता चलता कि किसी ने उनका घर लूट लिया। सभी खुश खुश एक साथ रहते थे, किसी का नुकसान नहीं होता, क्योंकि हर एक किसी और को लूटता जो कि किसी तीसरे को लूटता। यही ताका चलता रहता और आखिरी वाला पहले को लूटता। व्यापार में विक्रेता और खरीदार दोनों बेईमानी करते। देश की सरकार एक अपराधी संस्था थी जो प्रजा से चोरी करती और प्रजा बस सरकार को चूना लगाने में व्यस्त थी। चुनांचे जिंदगी सही चल रही थी, ना कोई अमीर था ना कोई गरीब। एक दिन न जाने कैसे ऐसा हुआ कि एक ईमानदार व्यक्ति आ गया। रात को वो चोरी न करता बल्कि अपने घर पर बैठकर दावे पड़ता।
वनकम नान वित्ती तंकी पंकी पटी। I'll stay home to smoke and read.
चोर आते, बिजली जलती देख लौट जाते। उस दिन तो ये चला, फिर से समझाया गया कि वो खुद ना करे पर दूसरों को रोकने का उसे कोई हक नहीं। हर रात जब वो घर रहता है तो एक परिवार अगले दिन भूखा रह जाता। ईमानदार आदमी को बात समझ आ गई। वो रोज शाम को बाहर जाने लगा और सुबह लौटता, पर वो चोरी नहीं करता। वो था ईमानदार, इसका कोई कुछ कर ही नहीं सकता। वो नदी के पुल के पास जाके पानी को ताकता। जब घर लौटता तो रुक चुका होता।
सब कुछ सीखा हमने न सीखी बेईमानी, सब कुछ सीखा हमने न सीखी बेईमानी। सब सच है दुनिया वालों के हम है अनाड़ी,
दुनिया ने कितना समझाया कौन है अपना कौन पराया, फिर भी दिल की चोट छुपाकर हमने आपका दिल पहलाया। खुद ही मर मिटने की है जिद है हमारी, सब कुछ सीखा हमने ना सीखी बेईमानी।
एक हफ्ते में ही ईमानदार व्यक्ति निर्धन हो गया। उसके पास न खाने को कुछ था न उसके घर में कुछ बचा। ये समस्या नहीं थी क्योंकि गलती उसी की अपनी थी। समस्या ये हुई कि उसके इस व्यवहार से सारी व्यवस्था उथल पुथल हो गई। क्योंकि वो दूसरों को चोरी करने देता बिना खुद चुराए, तो कोई न कोई सुबह घर पहुंचता और उसका घर अपना घर अछूता पाता। क्योंकि उस ईमानदार ने उसे नहीं लूटा। कुछ देर बाद जिनके घर में चोरी नहीं होती वो औरों से ज्यादा अमीर हो गए और करेले पर नीम चढ़ाते हुए जो ईमानदार व्यक्ति के यहाँ चोरी करने आते उसे खाली पाते वो और गरीब हो गए। अब जो अमीर हुए वो रात को ईमानदार अनाड़ी व्यक्ति की तरह पुल पर जाकर पानी को बहता देखते। नतीजा ये हुआ कि कई और अमीर बन गए और कई और गरीब। अब अमीरों ने सोचा कि वो रोज पुल पर जाते रहे तो गरीब बन जाएंगे। उन्होंने एक नया समाधान उठाया, क्यों ना हम कुछ गरीबों को पैसे दे दें ताकि वो हमारे लिए चोरी करें। उन्होंने ठेके निकाले, वेतन तय किए, लाभ के हिस्से बांटे। थे तो सभी चोरी और एक दूसरे को ठगने में लगे रहे, पर जैसा कि होता ही है, अमीर ज्यादा अमीर होते गए और गरीब ज्यादा गरीब। कुछ अमीर लोग इतने अमीर हो गए कि उन्हें ना चोरी करने की जरूरत पड़ी ना चोरी करवाने की। पर अगर वे कुछ ना करते तो गरीब उनको लूट लेते और वो फिर से गरीब हो जाते। तब उन्होंने सबसे गरीब लोगों को अपनी रक्षा के लिए भाड़े पर रखा, मतलब पुलिस बल स्थापित किया और जेल बनवाई।
Hey, hurry! He's waking up. Let's now conclude the stories. Here's the end of Good for Nothing, the first story. But the strangest part was, as I thought this over before answering, I felt as if I already considered the question before and settled it and sorted and stored it away, somehow expecting that someone would ask me this question. My children will learn from others how to tie their own laces. But you know what was even more absurd? The stranger came back.
और सोचो, अगर प्रलय आ जाए और सारी मानव जाति नष्ट हो जाए और तुम्हें और तुम्हारे परिवार को चुना जाए मानव जाति को आगे बढ़ाने, तो तुम क्या करोगे? ये सोचा तुमने? कैसे सिखाओगे मानवता को गांठ बांधना? और अगर तुमने नहीं सिखाया तो कितनी सदियां निकल सकती हैं इस चीज के आविष्कार में कि गांठ कैसे बांधी जाए।
I thought for a moment to myself, and still, after giving it much thought, I couldn't make head or tail of this right now. The knot or the conversation. Ami, but why should I, of all the people, be the chosen one, as you put it? Why me? When I don't even know to tie the knot. The man with the beard was against the light on the threshold of the door. There was something frightening, angelic about his expression.
मैं ही क्यों? यही सभी कहते हैं। सबकी अपनी अपनी जूतों की गांठ होती है। कोई अक्षमता जो उन्हें औरों से मांगती है। आजकल समाज इसी पर चलता है, कौशल और अक्षमता का मिश्रण। पर प्रलय आ गए तो क्या होगा? अब तुम्हें जूतों के फीते बांधना नहीं आता, किसी और को लकड़ी समतल करना नहीं आता, कुछ ने टैगोर या प्रेमचंद नहीं पढ़ा और किसी को कॉफी बनाना ही नहीं आता। मैं सालों ढूंढ रहा हूं, बहुत मुश्किल है। लगता है लोगों का हाथ थामना पड़ता है, जैसे कि वो अंधे या अपाहिज हो, एक दूसरे के बिना कहीं जा नहीं सकते। पर बहस जारी है। मतलब अगर प्रलय हुआ तो सब साथ मारे गए.
So, saying this, he turned and disappeared in the street. I never saw him again. And I still wonder whether he wasn't a strange maniac or an angel. For years, roving the earth in vain in search of a second no. I ask you this question now. Will some of you like to share your areas of incompetence?
I'll start. I'm thoroughly incompetent in music, art, and biology. And I'm doing something about music through coaching and biology through reading. Just in case the flood comes or World War III and humanity needs to start over.
Anyone of you would like to share or chime in for this one? The stage is open.
मुझे भी जूतों की कान से बांधना नहीं आता.
Oh, that's great.
It's not.
No. It saves you time. You could go ahead and just slip on shoes.
Well, I play sports and keep falling.
So, you're not the only one. Don't worry. Anyone else?
My sense of direction is horrible.
Uh-huh.
So, and even Google Maps don't help because, I mean, they also don't help me.
Theirs is also bad.
So, so I claim to be a very independent person, but where going somewhere is concerned, if I don't get an Ola, I'll cancel my program. Because I can't reach on my own.
So you mean to say this is right?
Yeah,
And this is
yeah,
left?
Right. Right.
No,
Right, that right
that's
is
left.
left.
And this is right.
Yeah, you're right that right is left.
Okay.
And today you found the Ola.
We're so glad that
Today
you're here.
I lost my way.
We lost our way.
It
We
was
said to lose our way. Because the people gave us wrong direction.
Anyone else?
Yep.
Yeah, I can't keep up with the technology today. I couldn't read the map. I was here till the Gogo had to come out to fetch me in. I was standing right outside and I didn't know where I was.
We're glad that you're here. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
That's
Thank
because
you.
Naila drives you everywhere.
Even up the wall.
Ouch.
Yeah, I just thought Naila drives you with a pun.
I could have stopped at that, but I thought.
So Naila
He's my
became his Ola
friend
twin.
too. He's my friend too.
Okay. Any more? Yeah.
I was wondering why I became a teacher. And then I realized that is because I don't know so many things. And becoming a teacher, I'm forced to learn.
I thought it was the other way around. Being a teacher, you get to confidently, scold your students for not knowing things.
And pretend that you know everything.
Correct.
No, it's a mirror that you're looking at every day.
Great. Two last. Yes.
Yeah, so Umesh, he mentioned that if floods come, then what will happen? I don't know how to swim. I'm worried about that. अगर प्रलय आ गया तो तैरना तो आना चाहिए. Yeah, and I am a terrible singer as well. I can't sing, and Rushabh can vouch for that.
No. I can make sure that that is changed over the weeks.
Over the weeks and months and years.
Coffee music classes.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Last one.
Yeah.
Okay. I laugh at inappropriate times though. That's one of my shortcomings which I am trying to combat. But yeah. Now let's move to the ending of the second story. Seeing that the efforts were in vain, the messengers went to tell the constables.
आसान, बहुत आसान, अति आसान. आपातकाल की घोषणा कर दो. गिल्ली डंडा ही बंद करा दो. गिल्ली डंडे को अवैध घोषित कर दो.
That was when the people rebelled and killed a lot of them. Then without wasting time, they got back to playing tit cat. Oh, balle balle, chalo gilli danda khele.
A moral of the story. And every story has a moral. In our country, ban whatever you want to. Ban whatever to eat, drink, wear, read, etc. But never forbid cricket or Bollywood.
That's for sure.
Now let's hear the end of the third story, Black Sheep.
So it was that only few years ago, like only few years after that the entry of the honest man, people no longer spoke of robbing or being robbed, but now they were speaking about the rich and the poor. But they were still all thieves. The only honest man had been the one from the beginning, and he died a very short order of hunger.
So what are these stories about? They are about how the system with a capital S deals with you. First, it declares you incompetent, unsuitable for the new emerging world. Next, it forbids you from all that you do, just bans everything. And finally, it overturns the value system, morality, for example, by changing the constitution. That is what we are up against. मौका है फैज की ये नज़म याद करने। Let's end our session with the Hindi version of the Ciao about good for nothing, making do, and black sheep. So,
So we did the English song, we did the Italian original. This one came out when Money Heist was like just catching fire and was a part of a cult that people started. So,
जब तक है बाकी सीने में दम गाएंगे ऐ जालिम वापस जाओ 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 ऊंचे कूचे से गूंजे है नारे तेरे रातों की राख वापस जाओ जब तक है बाकी सीने में दम गाएंगे ऐ जालिम वापस जाओ 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 फिर लहराएगी लाल गगन में तेरे रातों की राख वापस जाओ कब तक झेलेंगे ये काली रातें पूरे ढकेले तुम्हें वापस जाओ 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 कूचे कूचे से गूंजे है नारे ऐ जालिम वापस जाओ 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 हम सब मिलकर अब सब मिलकर अब करते हैं ऐलान ठुकराते तुम्हें वापस जाओ 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 बुलंद आवाजें सुनकर ये कांपे मिलकर चिल्लाओ वापस जाओ 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 बुलंद आवाजें सुनकर ये कांपे ऐ जालिम वापस जाओ 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 una mattina sono segnato bella ciao bella ciao bella ciao 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 una mattina mi sono segnato e ho trovato invaso del partigiano portami via bella ciao bella ciao bella ciao 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 il partigiano portami via e mi sento di morire se felice lassù in montagna bella ciao bella ciao bella ciao 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 e se felice lassù in montagna mi inunda un bel fiore entre le genti che passeranno bella ciao bella ciao bella ciao 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 delle genti che passeranno mi minaro che bel fiore e questa fiore del partigiano ciao, ciao, ciao. E questa fiore del partigiano